This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. With the season now here, we're going to be talking a ton about betting, and all of our numbers are going to come from Bet Online. They have every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while games are being played. I was looking earlier today at some of the odds on Bet Online, and a few of them stuck out to me. Jay Stu, of these bets, which one do you feel the best about taking? Oregon minus 300 to make it to the playoff, Oregon plus 800 to win the championship, Oregon plus 190 to win the Big Ten, or Dylan Gabriel plus 500 to win the Heisman.
Man, you said plus 190?
Plus 190 to win the Big Ten.
Yeah, whatever that one is, I'm taking that one every time.
Okay, you think so, huh?
Yeah. I like the plus 190 range. If you're gonna bet and get some reward, that's the one.
Yeah. Seems like semi-safe, but you're also getting a little bit of return on your money.
Yeah, but if I'm speaking from straight diehard, which I am, national championship all day, baby.
I think that's where I'm going too. Plus 800, man, that's a good return, and that's a wide open path this year.
Put 1,000 on it.
There you go. Yeah. After the games, you can even go over and play on the Bet Online casino and get into some of the blackjack or poker games, unwinding with your favorite slot games. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. Head over to the website today to get in on all of the action and be sure to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% off free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Again, that's promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get a 50% off free bet credit. Bet Online, the game starts here. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the latest episode of the Believe in Oregon podcast. I'm Zachary Neel, my co-host over there, Jonathan Stewart. Jay Stu, what's up, man? How we doing?
Good, man. How's the weather?
The weather, it's like really muggy out here. I don't know. It's mid-70s, but been raining for the past couple of days, which has actually been really nice. But yeah, it's like the mid-90s are coming later this week. I'm not really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we don't want to have any forest fires out there.
It's kind of nice that it's keeping that down a little bit. How's the weather out there for you?
It's 90 today. It's not It's not above 90.
Okay,
at least not. Good. At least it was not supposed to be. That's what I saw on the weather app.
Yeah,
but it's nice though. After a while, you get acclimated to the heat here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have days that are like 90 degrees and 88, you can really feel the difference.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, oh, what a nice day.
We got a fun show coming for you, but before we dive into the football, I wanted to get our obligatory golf talk out of the way. I was talking to Lindsay, who is our producer, boss, kind of person that helps in every single thing that we could ever need with the podcast. Shout out to Lindsay; she's the absolute best. She brought up an idea. She brought up an idea that I'm kind of mad that we haven't had yet. But why have you not reached out to Max Homa and tried to have him rate your swing online? Have you seen him do that on social media? People like send him videos and have him like critique their swing in funny ways. We need to do this with you. This seems like a content just like waiting for us.
Sounds like it's been off my radar. First of all,
did not. You not know about this?
Don't know about it.
You got to look it up. It's fun.
Well, I think we need to do that. Can you point me in the right direction?
I will point you in the right direction after this. We'll send him a video of your swing. You'll ask him.
Does he just go in on people's swings?
He usually does. You gotta have some tough skin for this, for sure.
Yeah.
But I've said, hey man, you posted a video of you getting a little tap in par the other day. Was that today?
Today.
You're doing good.
Yeah, man. Don't worry about the swing and what it looks like. Just as long as the ball goes where it's supposed to go, everyone.
Exactly.
I can imagine him saying something like, "Oh, look at his big old back when he swings. Get your back out of the way, fella."
You got some thick legs there, so yeah, I'm surprised they don't get in the way.
Yeah.
But I mean, even like, have you seen the stuff with Sauce Gardner, the New York Jets cornerback? He's getting into golf. Man, there's some content gold out there that we're not tapping into. I think we need to change that.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, once we get off this this pod here, I'm going directly to the source.
Okay. Yeah.
See
You're gonna go play.
See what we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. I can't wait. All right. As I said, we've got a great show coming up today. Fall camp has begun as you're listening to this right now. We had Oregon Media Day earlier this week where we got to sit down and talk with over 40 different Ducks. And then we also talked with Dan Lanning too. And they kicked things off on Wednesday afternoon with their first practice of the year. So to kind of wrap up the offseason, we're going to do an extended mailbag Q&A and look at, our expectations for the season, some players to watch, maybe give a few predictions along the way when all is said and done. But before that, we've got a really special guest coming on. This man is behind the scenes at Oregon, but he's quickly turned himself into a fan favorite among hardcore Duck fans. Scott Anderson, who is the Senior Associate Director of Video at Oregon. This is the man that was in charge of the Ducks vs. Them series last year that kind of recapped every game every week. And he's the man behind, the uniform reveals and a lot of the creative stuff that the Ducks put out on social media. Scott is going to come on today and tell us about a new project that Oregon is releasing this week that I personally cannot wait for. You've talked to Scott a little bit before. What do you most want to learn from him today? What are you most excited to talk to him about?
I don't want to get ahead of my questions here, but just wanting to understand his process. I'll just leave it at that. I know his process. I'm a big process person, especially when someone's doing something so well. I just want to know. How you do it.
I'm also curious about that. And also this is a man that obviously sees so much behind the scenes and behind closed doors at Oregon. I want to see what we can get out of him today. That's just going to be my goal throughout we have not taped this interview yet. I want to see what little nuggets we can get out there and see what
I also want to know what he has access to as far as old film and all kind of stuff. So maybe we can get
go in the archives for you.
Content. Yeah, some content archives. A little blast from the past.
That'd be great. I'd love that.
Because what stinks about being an old guy is 05, 06, 07. Those years, the technology wasn't there to just put things in a cloud. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of film that's just sitting
VHS tapes.
Dust those things off, unless they were pre-recorded on national television and all those types of things. They'll end up on YouTube in some fashion, but the plays that I've had, they didn't end up on a national level, so they're not on YouTube.
We'll see what he can do for us. He'll have to go into the archives for us.
Hook it up, dog. Dog.
Dust off some old videos and folders for us. All right, well, let's not delay any longer. Here is our interview with Scott. All right, I am incredibly excited for this interview. I've been wanting to talk to this man for a long, long time after all he's done so far at Oregon. Scott Anderson, welcome on, man. How you doing?
Great. First day of camp starting today as we're taping this, so it's getting crazy here, but it's fun. This is the fun time of year, so we've been talking about it for a while, and now it's finally here. So it's exciting, nerve-wracking, stressful, all the above.
It feels like the off season. It gets longer and longer, but when you really think about it, it's shorter and shorter. But now that we have football here to actually talk about, it's okay, it's busy, but it is so much fun. I love this time of year.
Yeah, me too. Even though I sleep less, but it's okay. I get to eat more now that we have training camp, so that's great. But
there you go.
Other than that,
what do you do for exercise?
Me, well, we've got a nice gym down here below my office.
There we go.
So
I think I've heard about that.
I mostly, you might have seen it, the HTC, you might have heard. So I locked in a lot this summer to try to get myself right before training camp and the season starts. Here's my squad behind me.
Okay.
They can vouch for me. I've been working out pretty good this off season, preparing myself for the grind.
Yeah, gotta have it, man. Especially if you're eating some good food down there.
That's right. They feed you 3 times a day, and even if I show up, they think I'm a football player, so they stock my plate. I'm like, I don't play. I don't need 5 pieces of chicken, but they still do it.
Nice.
So for the hardcore Oregon fans know you. They've obsessed over your work for the past year or so. The Ducks versus Them videos, the the Grass is Damn Green video for Dan Lanning, countless other things. For less hardcore fans who don't know you, don't know the legend of Scott Anderson, can you give me a quick, synopsis on yourself and your career thus far leading up to Oregon?
Yeah, sure. So actually joining the Big Ten is kind of cool for me. I'm from State College, Pennsylvania, so Happy Valley is my hometown. So I went to school there. That was the first team I worked for. I worked for Penn State and during 2016 when they won the Big Ten championship. So that was kind of when I got my start doing this stuff. People think Oregon invented cinematic recaps. I was actually making them at Penn State back in 2016. So you can look at that one on YouTube for the Big Ten championship game.
Do they still do it?
There. I'm not actually sure. I don't really lock into them anymore. I'm an Oregon guy now, so I kind of don't really pay attention. But no, we used to have something called the Penn State football story, which they do not do anymore since I'm gone. So yeah, no, not anymore. But did that for a while, and I just kind of wanted something new. I lived in one place my whole life, so I applied for a job at ESPN and ended up getting it. So I worked on SportsCenter for 3 years, doing highlights, making the top 10 plays. Worked for SVP for a little bit, all those types of things, and then started cutting kind of promos for their big events. And that was where I really got into the creative stuff. So want to get back to college football, went to North Dakota State where they had an opening to be a director. So I worked there for a couple of years, won a national championship there with them. Got there the year they had Trey Lance going in the first round of the draft. So a lot of cool experiences there. And then just wanted to get back to the big time stuff. So came to Oregon. That was kind of my dream school. Like a lot of kids say, that was it for me too. I wanted to be here.
Jay Stu, I'll ask you this. When you first saw the Ducks versus them, the cinematic recaps last year, what was your initial thought?
Man, where was you at when I was playing? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that a lot.
We talk so much about, man, it would be nice to have there's so many things on the web now, like the content of so many players and their cut-ups and highlights. Yeah. Like there was none of that when I was playing.
No.
And I think I just missed the window by just a smidge. Like if I was a year later, there would have been more creativity in that space. But man, it would be like you guys are really making you were saying earlier how it actually just gets shorter and shorter, but it feels like it's, our time just waiting for the season to come around. It's taking so long, but it's because we're being filled with so much good content.
Yeah.
Like you think about it, we're getting content here and there, but we're really not getting that legit feeling of game day experiences. Right. Mm-hmm. But in our mind, we're like, wait, we're getting all this food, but we're really not getting full. And so that's the reason why it feels like it's taking forever for football to come around. When in all reality, it's actually getting shorter and shorter. But just kudos to you and just everything that you've brought to Oregon and what Oregon stands for alone, right? Innovation, creativity, pioneers, right? We've got a pioneer in this space of creativity and content and video from yourself. And this is just, a match made in heaven. So awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we talk about is being different with our content, right? Like that's a huge part of it. So to hear that from you is great. Like that's really a goal is everybody at Oregon needs to be different, including us. So.
Well, and speaking of being different, I have a million questions for you that we'll get into later. But before we go too far, I want to give you the runway to talk about your guys' newest project. When this episode goes live on Thursday, it'll be public knowledge. But today on Wednesday, while we're recording this, it's still, quote unquote, top secret information.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing with us. But tell me about that team out west.
This is the exclusive.
Coming out on Thursday. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so that team out west is going to be a fall camp series, 4 episodes. They'll come out every Tuesday. So it's going to be, I'm calling it unprecedented access to Oregon football. I think we've filmed things nobody's ever filmed before. I think we're filming things nobody else in college football is filming. So you're really going to see inside the program like you never have before. We've been talking about doing this since really December, January of last year when Ducks vs. Them was kind of going crazy. Was what else can we do? We thought a lot of teams would probably try to catch up and do what we were doing last year. So it was, what are the next steps we can take to do something that's even bigger than what we did last year? And so really that team out west that you're going to be seeing this August is kind of the start of what we think is going to make us even better and even more different than what other teams are coming out with.
Jay Stu, thoughts?
Again,
I have a million, so please go first, because I could not stop talking if you let me go on it.
Yeah.
What was Dan's reaction to this?
That was actually my first question as well. How did Dan let you do this?
Dan pretty much asked me about it. I mean, he watches Hard Knocks. He's talked about that before, and I think just asking us, hey, like we would love to do something like that for fall camp. He's asked me about it. He's probably followed up with me every single month since we started talking about it. Like, hey, what's going on with that project? What are we doing? And he's been a big part of what we've been doing, and we've talked to him every step of the way about our ideas, and he's been kind of lockstep with us about what we want to do. So he's super excited about it, and definitely was a big part of getting it going.
How does it feel knowing that you have a head coach that has your back as a creative?
It's the biggest thing in this industry. I mean, if for people who don't know, like there's a ton of people in my industry who leave sports, especially leave college sports, because they don't feel that support, and it's a grind. Like it is a tough job, and you're working tons of hours. But when you get that support and somebody who gets it, like Dan just gets it. He gets the creative aspect of things. I've worked for coaches in the past who maybe aren't quite like he is, that get it, and he gives us freedom too. It's like he trusts us that we're going to be able to pull things off, and he's not having to hold our hand or anything like that. Like we can make things, and he trusts that we're doing what's in the best interest of the program and of him. So it's really cool to have a coach like that who's just understanding of our business and our industry, because not everybody is.
On that last note, how do I put this? How much creative control does he have? Are there things that he's made you cut out? Because he's like, hey, now guys, let's not give away all of our secrets.
A little too raw right there.
Honestly, not really. I've been doing it a while, so I kind of can understand what's good to go and what isn't. I think there's some, maybe that episode like you saw last year with Utah, right, where we were showing some play calls. I think that was probably the biggest one where he had an influence on kind of like, I had to ask him like, what does this play call mean? Making sure I'm not giving something away, right? So that was probably the biggest one where he had to have a little bit more help and just like, hey, this should go in and this shouldn't, whatever. But no, typically I think, we kind of have a good understanding of him and his program or program, I should say, and what they're expecting to go out there and what they're not.
I think one of my biggest things about this is just the title. I think is so perfect. I mean, for college football fans that know the Big Ten, they know that team up north for Ohio State and Michigan, and you guys calling this that team out west, I think is so great because it's showing respect and showing an understanding for the rivalries of the Big Ten, but it's also kind of letting it be known that the Ducks are going to be a force in the Big Ten and that other teams are probably going to start calling them that team out west because they're not going to want to say their name pretty soon. So I just think that I don't know who came up with a title, who decided if it was a group effort, but I just think it's, perfect. No notes. I thought it was great.
Yeah, that's exactly the reaction we wanted, right? It was wanting to kind of hit on some of those Big Ten traditions, and we want to be a part of those. Like we want you, if you're an Ohio State fan, like we want you to hate us. Like that's the goal, right? Like we want to be known as that. And so that was definitely part of the goal. We kind of had a list of names that we were thinking of all kind of summer long, and we ended up for the Rooted in Substance documentary. We did a couple of interviews, and people were saying it without being prompted. Like everybody we interviewed kind of said like that team out west or a team out west, like some variation of it. And so that was what kind of like clicked in our heads, like, okay, this is the name to settle on because people were just kind of talking about it organically.
Yeah. The culture of Oregon football, and how we have basically introduced ourselves to the Big Ten and probably just the East Coast and just reintroducing ourselves basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
The audacity, right? The words audacity just come out of my mouth when I think of, the tactics that we, deployed here. And to say that team out west is really saying it's not USC, it's not UCLA, and it's not UW. Like that has to be a little bit of the tactics, right? It's basically saying, again, we are the pioneers here. We're going to be the team coming into the Big Ten from the West. And for recruiting, right? Like this has got to be huge for recruiting, right? Because if kids, from Florida and, Alabama, they see how Oregon's carrying themselves into this new phase. Like, that's got to be something that you guys are thinking about when you're doing this content, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it too, like if you look at the college football landscape, we probably are that premier team out west this season. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a secret, right? Like, I think that's part of it. We interviewed somebody who you'll see in the trailer. We interviewed Joel Klatt for part of this series, and he talks about that, that Oregon right now this season is the premier team out west, and so I think, whether it's audacity or us just kind of acknowledging like, hey, that's kind of how we feel, is that this year we are that team that is kind of the premier one out west, but we have work to do, and you'll hear that in part of the show too, that whatever the outside noise says doesn't necessarily matter. We've got to still practice and hit training camp, so you'll hear kind of a soundbite that's very similar to that in the content that we're putting out.
Well, and I love the word from you, Jay Stu, audacity, because that is correct, but that doesn't mean it's a bad word. I mean, it's audacity, it's right. Confident, it's arrogant.
Confident.
All that stuff is great if you can back it up.
It's all the things that you want to be when you're talking to a young kid that's in high school saying you need to come to Oregon. Yeah, absolutely. We got the audacity.
And it's kind of the mindset that Dan Lanning has had for a lot of his time at Oregon too. Because what else was, audacious is the cigar video after that first recruiting class, and filming the locker room in front of, like, before the Colorado game. Yeah, there's a lot of audacity that it took to do those things, but they continually backed them up every time. So I think it's really cool that you guys are doing this. I want to ask, how similar to this, or how similar will this be to HardKnocks? Is this going to be just on-field locker room type access, or is it going to be kind of like in HardKnocks where you guys go home with some of these players and you show us what it's like for them outside of practice as well?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see in the trailer that we followed Dylan. Dylan did a retreat with the wide receivers in the offense called the Dime Time Retreat. We followed him there. We rode in his van with him. We went to something I don't think I'd ever filmed before at Oregon, as a coach's retreat. So all the coaches a couple weeks ago sat down in sisters in a cabin and just kind of talked about their season and their goals. So we've been following kind of a lot of different storylines this summer. So that's kind of what will make it similar to HardKnocks in my mind, is that we're doing more than just showing training camp and practice. Cause to be honest, like, just showing practice isn't necessarily that interesting. And so I think what will set our show apart is that it will encompass a lot more than just what's going out on that field.
Are you going to be taking clips from practice each week, kind of like how HardKnocks does it on a week-to-week basis with the game, and kind of turning those around really quickly? And if so, man, what is that like, and how hard? I mean, you do it with the Ducks versus them and the cinematic recap. You've got that short amount of time, but how hard is that?
Well, yeah. So yesterday I was in the office from 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. So that can probably tell you how hard that is. But yeah, that is what we're doing. So we're going into practice very prepared. So we're saying, here's our storylines, here's the players or coaches that we're following, or here's who has a mic, and we're going in there knowing what shots we want to get. We're not just kind of shooting blindly and then coming back here looking through 400 clips trying to figure it out. We're kind of going in there with a plan. I think that makes it a lot easier. With a game, you don't know what's going to happen. In practice, we can try to guess, like, we know what players we're going to follow, like whether it goes good or bad, right? Like, I think that makes it a little easier than a game. And we've had this summer, right, to cut some things a little bit already. We don't have necessarily everything laid out how we want it, but that gives us a little bit of a head start. But yeah, it'll be tough. We're filming practice every day and turning that around. I mean, we'll film practice on Friday, Saturday. The scrimmages happen Saturday, and then the episode will come out Tuesday. So that's going to be pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
How has the landscape changed as far as the importance of content over the last
huge.
3 years?
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, when I was at Penn State, the things I was cutting weren't even posted to social media, and that was just 2016. It's completely different than what it's been, even like you just said, 3 years ago. And you talked about recruiting too. Like, the biggest thing we've heard from those videos we made last year was tons of, recruits' parents, and it just helps people see the inside of the program and what it's like to be here. And that to us was what was most important, is just showing that genuine rawness of what it really is like to be here, and not putting out flashy kind of fluff that maybe you'll see at other teams. We kind of just put it out there and are like, here's what it's like. And that was kind of the best feedback we got, was seeing that. And you're seeing a lot of long form content in this space too, right? Like every sport has a documentary now, F1 and MLB and golf, and they're all doing these types of things. So this long form content is pretty popular right now. And so again, for us, it's just figuring out how to make ours stand out and different, especially in college football. And I think we've done that.
Stu, do you have anything else on that team out west? I've got some things about the Ducks versus them to get to, but I don't want to move on before you're ready.
No, not really. I mean, I think it's just great timing. I just feel like this is going to be really well received. So I can't wait to see it.
I sure hope so. We've been talking about it.
Imagine it would not be well received.
I'll say my favorite part is the music. So that's maybe a little tease to give people, but I'm really excited about the music that we have. We did something I think that's really unique that definitely has never been done in college football before. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome.
So we have like some known artists or like just, or what?
I don't know. We have, you're going to see.
There's some artists on the team, so I'm curious. This
okay, so
it is not. I will say it is a known artist, but probably not in the way you're thinking of. If that makes sense.
So team. So there's some players on there that's getting
maybe Young Concrete.
No, that is not what it is. No,
it's not Mateo. Okay, no. Bummer.
We talked about HardKnocks earlier, so that's a tease. We talked about HardKnocks. Maybe it has something to do with that.
I love it.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about. I just have several other questions for you about first them. As you know, we've talked a little bit before about I'm a huge fan. I grew up an Oregon fan. I grew up in Eugene, so like covering the team is awesome, and I'm still a fan at heart. So, it feels like the crowning achievement so far for you is Ducks versus them, the series last year. The crown jewel of that, I believe at least, is probably the Week 4 recap versus Colorado. Obviously, it gave us the locker room talk with Dan Lanning pregame. It gave us the pregame trash talk from Colorado players, and then just the beatdown that ensued after that. When you were filming that stuff and when you were kind of experiencing it in real time, did you know how special what you had was?
No,
really,
no. I mean, I knew like obviously the game and the result was special, right? Like I knew blowing them out was going to be something that was going to make for compelling content, right? Like I knew that, right? And I actually wasn't in the locker room for that speech, so I heard on the sideline. People were like, "Were you in there for the speech? Did you hear the speech?" I was like, "No." And they're like, "Oh, you're going to want to use it." So I was like, "Okay." Like, so that kind of was the first thing that I heard. Was like, "Oh, I'm excited to listen to that." Like I hadn't heard it. I got back to my desk after the game, knew nothing about like the social media blowing up of it. So that was interesting. But yeah, I would say more so once we kind of put the edit together. Was when I kind of was like, this is probably going to go viral. And our viral was like, it might get 1 million views. Like that's what kind of, I think we had talked about that. So we were a little off on that, but
what was the final number? I forget.
Depends on platform. Like on Twitter, like our Twitter has like 23 or 24 million, something like that. And then like a bunch of aggregate accounts have like 10, 20 more million that they got from it. So really we ended up putting it around 50 some million. Which is insane.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Can I ask?
I got a question. I got a question.
Go for it.
Shoot.
I was thinking about the cigar messaging. Dan announcing his I'm staying.
Yeah.
How did that all come about? Like, was that just like him saying like, "Hey, I'm going to be smoking a cigar later, so come record me"?
No, that's an old video. That's an old video from like I think Zach said like a recruiting. I wasn't even here when he did that, but
the 2023 class, I think.
Yeah. So, but the I'm staying video, I think Dan's talked about it. He had the recruit's mom who was asking him, if what was happening, and he asked her what would help, and she said, a statement. And so he texted a group chat of us and the creative staff. What could we do? And I said, I'll make a video, and I drove straight to work and started making it. I'd been thinking all day about we should make a video to announce this, like in my head, but I didn't know what was going on. Like I'm not high enough to know what's going on. So I just kind of sat on the idea and had it in my head. And once he texted me, I was in the middle of cooking dinner. I just threw it in some Tupperware and drove to work and started cutting it. So that's kind of how that came about. I had it in my mind of what I wanted it to be, and then just waited for kind of the word that we could put it out. So that's kind of how it happened.
Where do you get your dedication and like your drive from? For like, I'm just hearing you talk about like what, because at the end of the day, it's like passion, right? You are passionate about this so much so to where you're willing to basically skip dinner, basically, and go do this work.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I do love what I do, and I love seeing the reaction. Like, I do love like that the fan base gets excited about these things and all that. And I think it makes me better. You know, being in here and doing those things, like making a video like that, I think makes me better. It makes me grow and makes me more likely kind of to hit some goals in the future. And so I'm willing to kind of do those things in order to that's a big opportunity to cut a video like that. You know, the whole country's eyes are on Dan Lanning in Oregon at that moment. So I'm not going to say no to getting to make something that has that much attention on it.
Yeah.
Do you know the views numbers on that one?
I don't. We posted on his account, so we sent it to him and he posted it.
Yep.
20 something million, I think. I'm not sure.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. It was a lot. And it kind of blew up like right away, which is exactly what we expected.
That's what you want. Do you have a favorite project that you've worked on at Oregon? Obviously, you've done the Ducks versus them, multiple uniform reveals, like we just said, the landing announcement in January.
Yeah.
I'm sure many, many more. Is there a single one that kind of sticks out in your mind as your favorite?
Yeah, it's the one that a lot of people say is their favorite is Silver Wings. That was kind of the first one that really like kind of got people's attention. And I kind of had come up with that idea before the game. And I don't know, just to like, we were losing and I'm like, oh, I really want this idea to pay off. And then we win and I was like, yes, I can make this video. And then it just went so well and so perfectly. And we show up and a flyover happens and that's in the lyrics. And I was just like, oh, like we gotta win this game so I can use this
perfect song.
That one just like is the one, like if there's ever a video I would go back and like watch, it's probably that one. Like I'll throw that on to just, give myself some motivation sometimes if I need it. I'm like, yeah, that's just the one that makes me feel good. I wasn't even supposed to go to that game. Like I was new to Oregon. I showed up in the middle of training camp last year. Was when I started. So I wasn't even supposed to go and somebody got sick. So I got a seat on the plane and got to go. So
way to make a first impression.
That's kind of a funny story to that. So and it just kind of started it all. Like the Colorado video doesn't happen without Silver Wings. And so
I think my favorite is still a Utah one. Because we kind of knew what to expect with the cinematic recaps, and then you got the coach's audio in there, and it was like, oh man, this is a new level of intrigue in this. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was something we had recorded for a few weeks, was the headset audio, and we were just kind of waiting for the right highlight for it to go into, and that one made sense because I think a lot of people talked about how well Utah was coached, and we wanted to show how well we were coached, and that we had this great game plan, and it was executed, and everything they said in the meeting like happened. Like none of that was faked. Like that's all they talked about in the meeting. It happened in the game, and I was like, wow, this. Like I was impressed, and I was like, I know our fans will love to see that they executed like that.
When you're filming things, whether it's pregame or sideline stuff, do you have a top target? Obviously, it's going to be different this year because there's a lot of new players. But who's someone that that you can put a camera on them and you're going to get elite content?
Tez right now is definitely my guy for that.
I could have known that one.
Tez is our guy for that. If I need a soundbite, I'll go to him. But no, typically not. I mean, I try to spread it out a little bit. I think at my last school, I probably got a little bit. I don't know. I probably went to the same players too much. I think you want to spread it out and let people see a bunch of the different guys. So I tried not to do that, but I get a feeling Dylan will be one this year. He's really good with the cameras and been really good with us since he's gotten here. I think he's somebody who will probably gravitate to on the sideline, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think I would say Tez definitely number one. Our defense doesn't have too many like huge character voices like that. They're all just like really about their business, which I love too. So,
what about a coach?
That's a good question. Besides Dan, I think Coach Stein has been great too. Coach Stein, you'll see a soundbite in the trailer and in episode 1 that kind of got us all fired up in the office. So I really like that one. They had a offensive team unit meeting yesterday about their goals, and he just kind of fired us up. So I would say he's probably a good one.
I feel like Tosh is someone who you can put a camera on.
I mean,
you're not really asking him for a soundbite, but he's going to
no.
give you something interesting if you just film him for,
Yeah, Tosh is somebody who, if he doesn't even notice if the camera's there or not, he's going to be the exact same. So we filmed the same thing in defensive unit meeting yesterday. I was like, "What are you going to talk about in there?" He just said juice. So I was like, "Okay, I'll film that." That sounds good to me. So you'll see some of that too in episode 1.
Yeah, we don't want water. We want juice.
Yeah.
We want that extra stuff.
That's really all I needed to know. I was like, okay, I guess I'll film
we got
that.
it.
Yeah. When it comes to like just the cohesiveness and like the impact, right, of this content, talk about how this, impacts, creating an opportunity for players to, essentially be attractive to like NIL deals and all those types of things off the field, as far as like, personal brand and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is like showing who people really are, right? And if you can really see, especially in football, right, they wear helmets on the field, and it's really tough to see somebody's character and what they're like. So being able to show them behind the scenes what their personalities are like, what their stories are, which we're hoping to dive into to a few guys, like really go deep on their stories. Like, to me, that helps with your brand, because brands want to know that stuff too, and that makes it easier for them to market somebody if they know what they're all about, and it helps them, match up with things like that. So I think it's huge, and that's a big part of our goal, is not necessarily the NIL part of it, but just letting fans and letting people who watch this, see who our players really are and see what our team's really all about.
Yeah, you know what I think you guys should do is do a story on Dylan Gabriel's dog.
I know.
I was watching that. I'm not. Me and my family, we have a dog. I'm not a dog person. And his name's Nike.
Nice.
But he, him talking about his, his connection to, his pup.
Yeah,
really like got me going there. Like I kind of teared up.
It was a tearjerker. It was a
tearjerker for sure, and I wasn't really expecting it. And to be able to see him talk about, his connectivity to something that's living, and just how he responded to those questions, it gave me a whole different like perspective and view of who Dylan Gabriel is as a leader. I mean, this guy is well ahead of his time, in a sense of a locker room presence, understanding, how to be vulnerable and how to talk about his feelings and all those type of things. Is that what you're able to see behind the lens on a daily when you're recording these guys?
Yeah, right. That raw emotion, that's what I'm talking about, right? Is like just seeing somebody, especially you give Dylan's example, like, that's he let everybody into what he was really feeling. He wasn't hiding anything. He was being completely genuine. And that's what we try to get across, is obviously we can film all that raw emotion, that genuineness, and then it's about conveying that to an audience. And that's what we really want people to see is that kind of stuff, and not, we don't want to show things that aren't true or necessary. You know what I mean? Like we really want to stick to what our players are like and what their beliefs are, whatever it is, right? So yeah, Dylan with his dog, like we have a great shot of him when we were with his, following him in his van. We have a great shot of him and his dog, just his dog sitting in his lap barking, and Dylan gives his dog a kiss, and it's like, so finding ways to, hopefully use that now and tell this story like you talked about, I think makes sense, and finding other stories like that really show you who our players are.
Scott, can fans expect Ducks versus them to continue this year? Is it going to be something different? Is it a new title? Are you able to detail what the plan is going forward at this time?
I will say it will be something different.
Okay.
It will be something different, but
it'll be something.
Very similar. Similar to what I talked about earlier, like just finding ways to up the game a little bit, right? We don't want people to necessarily catch up to what we were doing last year. So if there's teams that are like, hey, we should do headset audio, like we want to take the next step to whatever that is. So there'll still be something after every game, but it will be a little bit different. Ducks versus them will be retired. The term cinematic recap will be retired. So
for
I'll
us,
say both.
Everyone else in the country will use it and think they're cutting edge. But yes, for Oregon, it'll be retired.
Right. So I'll say that. We don't need to say either of those things anymore. It will be something different, but you'll start to see it this August. Like that will kind of show you what it's really going to be like.
J. Stu, you got anything else for him?
No, man. Just appreciate you jumping on. Give us your time. I know today's a busy day. Stay active. Stay hydrated.
Yes, sir.
And just keep on inspiring us, man.
I will. Yeah.
Real quick before you leave, Scott, what are some names of, I mean, obviously you don't do this alone. You're a part of a really, really good creative team. Who are some names of people that fans can, follow and help promote their stuff and just kind of give some love to the guys around you that are really doing some of this really good work with you?
Sure. That's Jackson Madden over my shoulder right there. Was a student here at Oregon. We just hired him full time to stick around. Next to him, I don't think he's sitting there, is Braden Schmidt, who I jumped in the transfer portal, in the creative transfer portal, got him to transfer from Louisville. I think he's one of the best creative students in the country. So he just joined us literally a few weeks ago. So that's exciting. And then we have Steve Pohl, who has been here since Jay Steele was playing. He's been here for now 28 years. So he's kind of the OG, the head of the archives back there, but he does a great job for us. A lot of the videos you see on social media come from him too. So
tell Steve I need all of them archives sent into a cloud or something.
I will. You're probably old enough. You played with some of these, right? Cassette tapes. Yeah. That was probably your.
That is exactly what we were talking about yesterday. I knew they had the tapes somewhere.
I need all of those things distributed.
And see it.
Whenever you guys get to it,
2004 on it.
2005, 2006, 2007. Those are my years. I'd gladly love to, show people that I used to play football for the University.
I know we've been looking through it. We used a little bit of it, that Oregon State game. They filmed it on a film camera back in the day. So that footage, basically what they shot The Last Dance on. So it looks really sick. So you run into the end zone in the fog, looks pretty good. So
nice little grittiness.
It is. It looks great. So I'll send you that. I can get you that.
Well, I think I speak for all Oregon fans when I say that I absolutely cannot wait for the first episode of that Team Out West to come out. Brilliant idea, brilliant title, such a uniquely Oregon thing to do. I love it. Scott, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Tuesdays, Oregon football, social media, and YouTube. That's where it'll drop. So get ready.
Awesome. Can't wait. Thanks again, Scott.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Man, what a fantastic interview with Scott. I am so incredibly excited to watch that Team Out West, the new documentary coming out. I've always been a huge fan of Hard Knocks, so when he told me a week ago that they were doing their own version of it, I was like, yeah, sign me up. What do you think about that?
Man, I mean, they're just ahead of the game.
Right? It's crazy. They're just always, continually.
It's like one of those things where you're like, oh, man, we should invent something to sit on. Oh, what, a chair? Yeah, a chair.
Oh,
that makes a lot of sense. I'm always tired. My legs are tired. I should have invented a chair last year.
Yeah.
Just one of those things where you think of an idea, or you think to yourself, oh, we could do that. And you just think, why didn't I just do it already? Mm-hmm. Or why hasn't it already been done? Why hasn't this already been done amongst, the SEC schools, the Big Ten last year?
It's a really good question.
Now, Oregon is being able to be the first of many things they've already been first of.
I'm sure there's going to be copycats on this too. I'm sure next year we will see a lot more Hard Knocks style.
People are going to be scrambling and trying to figure out the best, videographer,
that is a good idea.
Director, and they're going to be jumping at the bits.
You can't have Scott Anderson. He is Oregon's, and he's not leaving.
Yeah.
Good All right, man. Let's dive into our mailbag. We got a lot of really good submissions from you guys, so thank you very much. I want to start with this one. This from Sam. What do you think the RB split will be like this year? Jordan James is a clear RB1, but Noah Whittington and Jay Harris need to see the field as well because they're just too talented. How will the offense manage those three?
Well, I would say, Noah Whittington is an easy option as change of pace, third down guy out of the backfield. He averaged 8 yards per carry, when he was healthy. So he's also a guy that just is a big play option. A lot of speed. So if he can come back and he still offers what he offered before he got injured, I think he's gonna. You can't ignore his big play ability. And then obviously you got the big dog in town. Change of pace. I mean, you're going into the Big Ten, and this is perfect because now we got, another body in there that can, split some carries amongst, Jordan James. So that way these guys stay healthy throughout the, remainder of the season. You're definitely going to need to depend on that. And I expect Oregon to depend heavily on the run game, especially earlier on in the season, just to, make things comfortable for Dylan Gabriel as he's entering his first year as a starting quarterback. Yeah, he has experience playing, but it's always good to have a running game to make it easier on the quarterback, but not just the quarterback, the offensive line, right? Mm-hmm. It just comes more natural for an offensive line to move together as a unit when you're run blocking and gain that confidence. So,
yeah, I agree, but I don't want to go into all of these questions and be like, oh, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But for this question, like, I honestly don't really know how they're going to split these carries because you can argue that Jordan James needs 20 carries a game. I mean, he is that talented of a back. You want to give him the ball, but man, Noah Whittington is fully healthy and really good. We talked to him yesterday. He's like, yeah, I'm back. I'm ahead of schedule with my recovery from his ACL last year. He's ready to go. And then, we've talked endlessly about Jay Harris this year. I also got to talk with him one-on-one yesterday. I really, really like that kid. He's got a high ceiling at Oregon. So, I'm going to try not to answer all of these questions with, oh yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But for this one, I really do feel like, man, I don't know what they're going to do, but it's going to be tough because there are a lot of mouths in that mouths in that room to feed, and they got some good guys.
I mean, I can see it happening just how it was with Bucky last year and Jordan James, because, there's a lot of times I saw when Jordan James ran the ball, I'm like, why aren't we giving him the ball 15 times? And maybe we might feel that way, with Jordan James being the premier guy and thinking to ourselves, why isn't Noah Whittington getting, at least 8 carries a game? So I agree with you, Zach. It's hard to, put a percentage on carries, especially when we are just guys sitting behind computer screens and microphones, just, guessing just like everyone else.
So I'll say that I'm a guy on a computer screen with a microphone. You're a former Pro Bowl running back, All-American. You're more than just a guy on a computer screen with a microphone.
Right now, I'm just a guy behind.
You at least know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But percentages is for people that are just bored talking about sports, waiting for the season to start.
Cannot wait. All right, this next one from Cameron. What is the worst record that Oregon can have this year and still expect to get into the playoff?
Oof. I mean, got Ohio State.
I mean, one loss they're in. You either win one in the regular season and then you win the Big Ten championship, you're in. You win every game in the regular season, you lose in the Big Ten championship, you're in. So the question is, 2 losses, do you get in? 3 losses, do you get in? What do you think?
I think I feel like there's going to only be 2 top guys. So, I mean, you can get in with 2 losses.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's gonna bake down to your 2 top guys, and it's so hard to really dictate what the rest of the crew is gonna be like because we're new to this. We're new to the Big Ten, true. And we just discovered over the last couple of weeks how bad some of these teams have been historically, and which can open up again the window of opportunity to where, like, if we did lose 3 games, we could still probably get in. But I would say 2. Just don't lose 3.
Yeah, I think that 2 you're in. You can lose, say Oregon loses to Ohio State in the regular season. and then, say again, knock on wood, this doesn't happen. Say again, they lose in the Big Ten championship. I still think you're probably in, because a 10-2 team who made it to the Big Ten championship, you're probably ranked within that top 10, top 12. So, but if you lose 3 games, I don't think you're in. I think that's too much. I think in the future we might see a 10 or a 9-3 team.
I think it all depends. It all depends on teams like Penn State and Michigan, right?
Yeah.
If Penn State and Michigan come out swinging and no one expected it, I think that's where the national attention starts to shift, right? Like, hey, wait, there's more than 2 teams here in the Big Ten that are dogs. So,
yeah. All right, this one from Eli. We've talked about this one quite a bit already, but will we see the travel have an impact on any games at all this season, or is it being overblown?
I think this year we learned. You remember earlier this, I think a month ago or a couple months ago, we talked about the travel.
Yeah.
We learned that the travel this year isn't necessarily all that bad as far as the amount of times. The amount of miles jumps tremendously, but as far as the amount of, opportunities to be on the road and suffer,
have
the
those
traveling woes. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal this year, but moving forward, it's something to definitely pay attention to.
I mean, so this year they're at Purdue, which is a long flight. They're at Michigan, which is a long flight. And then they're at Wisconsin, which is a long flight. But other than that, it's pretty short trips. You got an away game at Oregon State. That's 45 minutes. You got away game at UCLA. That's close. Other than that, you got a lot of home games. So, yeah, I think that in the future we might have questions about that. I mean, if you got some of these, games, maybe even back-to-back games where you're traveling a long way, then it's a concern. But this year, I think you got a pretty good schedule where you shouldn't have to worry about that too much.
Yeah. I wonder if they did that purposely so that way it's not such a shock to the system, right?
It could be a little, like ease them into it. I think that'd be a nice thing for the Big Ten to do. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear from someone about that.
Yeah.
All right, this next one from Jason. Who is the player that we aren't talking about right now that's most likely to be a star at season's end? You can't say Jay Harris.
Evan Stewart.
No, we're talking about him. I'm not giving you that. He was the number 1 player in the transfer portal. What are you talking about? Yeah. Number 1 wide receiver.
That's a good one. Yeah, you're right.
You got to go deeper.
Keep me right. Jahlil Florence.
Jahlil Florence. Okay, yeah, I like that. He's a solid cornerback, but they've got, they brought in cornerbacks above him that I think people are expecting to be the next guy.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't really think about this one before asking you the question.
Well, you should have thought about it, dog.
Honestly, this is like borderline. He's already a big enough star that we should be talking about him, but we're going to be talking. I think he could be in line for like one of the best wide receivers on the team. I'm super excited to see what Trayshawn Holden does this year. I feel like he's getting overlooked a little bit because you're looking at Tez Johnson, because you're looking at Evan Stewart. I think that a lot of people are kind of ignoring what Trayshawn brings to the table, and he's a different mold of receiver that this team doesn't really have. Other than him, he's a big-bodied kid. I'm excited to see what he can do. I know that's kind of borderline. Like, a lot of people know about him. He's a starter. If I had to go with a young guy or a non-starter, I would say Aaron Flowers, the safety, true freshman safety. I think is getting a lot of early buzz. He could definitely contend for a role as a starter, a big role player in this defense. So that's my off the radar pick. But if I'm picking someone who, isn't a star right now, but could be at the season's end and one of like the best players in the nation, give me Trayshawn Holden.
Okay. That's a good one.
This one from Will. This one is just for you, Jay Stu. Would you have liked playing in this current age of college football with NIL and the transfer portal?
Duh.
Really? Okay, just that easy.
Yeah, I mean, from the standpoint alone, the opportunity to get paid, it just changes the game. It changes, your livelihood, your family dynamic. I just think back to when I, was going to college. My mom was working 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So being able to like have an opportunity to lift that burden earlier, it just makes too much sense. And if I had to go back and have these types of opportunities that these young guys have now, I would definitely, take that up.
So when you played in college, you dealt with it a little bit in your pro career, but you don't have to deal with social media when you were in college. How big of an impact do you think that is on these kids having to deal with that outside noise that's just magnified to a level that it never was when you were in college?
Oh man, it's that piece of it. I'm glad that I didn't have to be raised and go to college during these times for that standpoint. The pressures, the noise is way louder. I mean, you got 808s basically just right at your drums, right? Your eardrums. And it's hard to avoid. And I commend, these athletes that are able to, stay focused, especially at the college level, and be able to ignore, the doubters and the naysayers and the bad reporting that's out there, that people just, chase opportunities to damage, a person's likeness just because of a game. That's tough, man. It's tough hearing from critics all over. I mean, nowadays it's not even beat writers. It's, the 12-year-old kid that has access to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, all of it, right?
Yeah.
And everybody has something to say about you. From the 12-year-old to the 7-year-old to the 90-year-old grandma that is hoping and praying that the Ducks make it to the championship and wins because she's been waiting her whole life to see it happen.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I mean, obviously, face value, yeah, you'd love to play in the NIL era where you can make, $750,000 to $1 million or more a season if you're, a player of the stature that you were when you were at Oregon. But yeah, dealing with that outside noise.
It comes with the territory now. That's part of the territory, right? Like
True.
if you're gonna get paid, it comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. And that's basically what's happening is you're seeing the college level turning into like a semi-pro atmosphere where you do get reciprocated, or you get paid nicely for your contributions on the field and your image and your likeness that you have, a duty to protect, and making good choices on and off the field.
Well, and that's a much larger conversation too. I've had this conversation with some of my friends that, about players at the NFL or NBA level. Like we talked about the John Morant situation where he got in trouble and suspended for, having a gun on social media and having videos with the gun and stuff. And, one of my friends was saying, there's nothing illegal about that. Why are we punishing him for this? And I'm like, well, when you're getting paid that much money and you're getting paid to be the face of a franchise and of a league, you're held to a different standard. And so that, like you're saying, that does come with the territory.
Right. To whom much is given, much is required.
Exactly.
Period.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But also too, you don't go waving guns on social media.
Like, when you're supposed to be a role model. Yes.
Right.
Probably not a good idea.
Now if you're going to go hunt and all those types of things, like I get it. Hey, I got my rifle in the back. I'm about to go kill a deer. And for those that like to hunt, that makes a lot more sense. But obviously, whoever your friend is needs a talking to.
He would love a talking to you. He's a big fan.
Yeah, well, listen,
we should set that up.
There's everything wrong with waving a gun on Instagram.
Yeah, I would agree. That was my my point of contention as well. All right, we got 2 more here. One from James. Aside from Wisconsin, what do you think is the biggest trap game on Oregon's schedule this year?
Man.
And maybe not even trap game. I mean, it's tough to define a trap game because that's kind of always...
trap game means that they're good enough and bad enough.
and that Oregon is, and that you're overlooking them. But I guess, like, what are the games that make you the most nervous on the schedule, regardless of whether it's a trap game or not?
I'm gonna say UW.
Okay, you think UW's not a trap game.
And the only reason
that's
why
the biggest rival. That's the biggest game of the year, other than Ohio State.
Exactly. That's the reason why it's a trap game.
But it's not a trap game. You're not overlooking that. It's your rival.
The mindset. It can be a rival all you want to, but they're gonna be trash this year. So
I'm not gonna disagree there. I got nothing for you there.
So a trash team can still be a trap game. Just like how there are some years Oregon State was terrible.
But Oregon State was never a trap game.
Listen,
I think we're just disagreeing on the definition of a trap game. What I'm thinking is that a trap game is one that you're overlooking because you've got Ohio State on the week after. You got Michigan the week after. Okay. So you're kind of overlooking them a little bit. That's why I don't think Washington can be a trap game, because you've got to bye the week before them, and then it's the last game of the regular season, and you've lost to them 3 straight times. You're not overlooking that game.
I feel you on that. Trap game. UW wouldn't be a trap game because you would not be overlooking them.
You're not getting trapped by anything. You lose that game, you lost. You weren't overlooking them.
I mean, we play Illinois.
See, that was my option. Let me pull up the schedule real quick. Who do they play around Illinois? And I think that I'm basing this way too much off of the stupid simulation I did of Oregon's season, and they lost to Illinois at home. But so they play Ohio State, then Purdue, then Illinois, and then Michigan. So yeah, I think Illinois.
Yeah, I can see Illinois
could be a trap game.
And they're wearing orange. Depends on what they wear too. It might give us some flashbacks from Oregon State. Kind of mess us all up in the head going into that game. Halloween's around the corner. Just a lot of spooky stuff going on. I'll go Illinois.
I think that's Illinois is a decent one. Another one I'm looking at, I don't know that it's a trap game by definition because you don't have big games around it, but the second week of the season against Boise State, that's just a game, Boise State could be good this year. They've got Malachi Nelson at quarterback, former 5-star from USC. I don't think they'll be good enough to beat Oregon, but it's a game I'm at least looking at and be like, all right, that's one you have to pay attention to in the offseason. That's not Idaho. Yeah. It's not Oregon State or Portland State, something like that.
Right.
All right, we got one final one from Skylar. Which Duck is going to improve their NFL draft stock the most this season?
Terrence Ferguson.
Okay. Tell me why.
And I just feel, run game's about to be heavy. Mm-hmm. Again, that's just my thought. If I'm going into this conference, the establishment of who we are and where we are, you got to do that. But the RPO with Dylan Gabriel and just the nature of that offense and how they're going to utilize him, I feel like the tight end position is going to be monumental. So the dependency on him being able to control the middle of the field while also giving these reads with the running back, whether you're keeping it or you're letting it go, you have your tight end there. That's going to be wide open because you have also 2 receivers that you have to pay attention to as well. And so the odd man out is the tight end always at every level of sport of football. So, I mean, you talk about, I just look back at how we were 2015 Cam, we stressed defenses out because it was either Cam keeping it, or he's handing it off. And then next thing you know, the linebackers come up, and then you just dump something over the top to the tight end.
Who were your receivers that year? You had Olsen. Who were your receivers?
Ted Ginn, Jericho Cotchery, Philly Brown, and Devin Funches.
Okay. You had Funches then.
Yeah, and we stressed people out because they didn't know how to cover the middle of the field. We controlled the middle of the field with basically 2 running backs and Cam and myself, but also Cam being able to connect over the middle of the field with Greg Olsen, and then the play action, to Ted Ginn down the field, screaming down the field, and then you have motions in the backfield with Speedy, Philly Brown. There's just a lot of things that are going to happen to where you're leaving the tight end open, because that's what happens.
Yeah, that all worked until you saw my Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl, huh?
Yeah, that's what happens when we ended up we could not figure out a way to get Greg out of blocking. Man,
yeah, that was a cheap shot. I'm sorry. I felt bad about that one, but
it was really just we just kind of got real complacent with our play calling there.
Interesting. Okay.
But I wouldn't say that. I would say it was more so just missed opportunities, man. I feel like we definitely had a catch when Jericho Cotchery caught that ball, and they called it an incomplete, and that changed the trajectory of the game.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and back to Terrence Ferguson, when you've got so many weapons on the outside, like you're explaining, and you have the defense tied up in so many ways, and then you have a receiver, pretty much, who's as big and physical and athletic as Terrence Ferguson, or like Greg Olsen in your case, and he's matched up on linebackers in the middle. That is, Shaq would say, barbecue chicken. I mean, that's barbecue what you want, baby, every single time. So that'll be fun to watch this year. I agree.
Large target, 6'5". I mean, and he's a smart kid. And just, I feel like these tight ends, if they're doing anything right now, they're studying Travis Kelce. How does Travis Kelce get open? Well, Travis Kelce gets open because he runs routes with the mindset of a quarterback. So that's all it is. Like, be where you would want your target to be if you were a quarterback.
Yeah. You don't have to be more physically gifted than every player on the defense, but if you're smarter than that defense and you know where to go to exploit them, that's, piece of cake. For me, for this NFL draft stock question, I would say it's linebacker Justin Jacobs. I think that a lot of people are looking at Jeff Bossa as, the linebacker one right now. And that's just to take nothing away from Bossa. I'm just so intrigued by Jacobs. He's dealt with injuries his entire career, both at Iowa and last year at Oregon. He missed the first, I think, 4 or 5 games. He's fully healthy going into this year. He talked to him yesterday. He said he's feeling great. He leaned down a little bit. I'm just excited to see. He's that mold of linebacker that we have not really seen at Oregon in a long time. I think he's 6'4", 6'5", 240, 250, somewhere around there. But I'm excited to see what he can do. I could see him having the type of year he's capable of and, becoming a second, third rounder, when right now he's probably not on a lot of people's minds as far as draft stock goes.
Yeah. I like that.
Okay.
These are good questions.
They are. These are, that's all the questions we had today, but that was some really good stuff for, our
thank you guys.
End of off-season mailbag. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Before we get out, do you have, I don't know that I even want to ask this question because I think I know what your answer is going to be, but do you have a prediction for Oregon this season? A record prediction, a final prediction for them?
12-0, baby.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
I ain't playing no games with y'all.
So 12-0, and then there was actually one more question. I just remember, I forget who it was. I forgot to put it in the sheet, but I just remember seeing this. God, I'm sorry that I forget who asked me this question. I want to give you credit, but do you think there's a benefit to getting that first round bye, or is that, do you have to worry about the rust at all? The question was something like that.
A first round bye is always good.
Yeah, right.
It's just, you just got to mentally be ready. I mean, this will be different, and this will be something that, the coaching staff will have to monitor, but to rest that body, man, it's
especially that late in the season.
Yeah, it's good stuff. This is a long season this year, and for these especially for the older guys, that have been there, you're looking at your juniors, your seniors, redshirt juniors. these guys need to rest their bodies. So I'm always for, a bye week.
Yeah, I agree. As far as my kind of outlook for the season, I'm not quite as bullish as you are. I think they'll go 11-1 in the regular season.
Who are they going to lose to?
If they lose to anyone, it's going to be Ohio State. Ohio State's good, man. I'm sorry. I'm being a realist. I'm going to be the quote unquote unbiased journalist here, even though I'm definitely very biased as an Oregon alum.
Well, guess what?
Ohio State's good, man.
Just because of that, when they win,
okay. What are we doing?
You're gonna have to do something really dangerous. I'll
dangerous.
think of it.
I don't like this.
I'll think of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it, man.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do something real dangerous. Your kids are gonna question you.
Now I'm gonna be pulling for Ohio State to win. So I'm gonna do something dangerous. I don't like the position you've put me in.
Your kids are gonna look back at this and gonna say, "Dang, Dad, why'd you do that?"
Guys, Uncle Jonathan made me.
No, kids. Your daddy was tripping.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I would absolutely love to be wrong. I hope you're right in this, and they go 12-0 and win that first championship.
Do you like mayonnaise?
I do like mayonnaise, but like a reasonable amount of mayonnaise. I'm not trying to eat a ton of it.
Yeah, that might be part of the bet.
Okay. God, now I'm actually a little nervous for this. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you again for sending in questions. Thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to the show, you like it, please subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff. Help us grow our audience, please. We're a few weeks away from the regular season, so we've seen an uptick in traffic. We've seen an uptick in engagement, so I know that people are rating, subscribing, telling their friends and family about this. Thank you. Please keep doing that. We really appreciate it. Do you have anything else to add before we get out of here?
Nope. Just tell your mama, tell your pa, tell everybody that's listening in your car. and the people that are in your car, tell the people that are on the street and tell them that they got to get undercover so they can beat the heat.
Wow. It's impressive. You come up with that, or is that a saying?
Yeah, I just came up with that.
That's impressive. All right. Yeah, we're going to need to get you on we're thinking about doing a new podcast
Bars.
song. Lindsay was talking to me about getting a new podcast song, and now I know that, like, hey, maybe J.Stu writes that.
Yeah. I'm musically inclined, brother.
Okay. I love it. A man of many talents. All right. You can check out more of my work at duckswire.usatoday.com. Follow me at Zachary C. Neel on Twitter. Follow J.Stu on Twitter at JonathanStuR1. Make sure to check out the Believe in Panthers podcast. For myself, Zach Neel, for my co-host, Jonathan Stewart. We'll talk to you guys next week. Until then, take it easy.